Catelyn. "My lady, you ought cover your head," Sir Roderick told her as the horses plodded north. "You will only take a chill." "It is only water, Sir Roderick," Catelyn replied. Her hair hung wet and heavy, a loose strand stuck to her forehead, and she could imagine how ragged and wild she must look. But for once she didn't care. The southern rain was soft and warm. Catelyn liked the feel of it on her face, gentle as a mother's kisses. It took her back to her childhood, the long grey days at River Run. She remembered the godswood, drooping branches heavy with moisture, and the sound of her brother's laughter as he chased her through piles of damp leaves. She remembered making mud pies with Liza, the weight of them, the mud slick and brown between her fingers. They'd serve them to Littlefinger, giggling, and he'd eaten so much mud he was sick for a week. How young they'd been. Catelyn had almost forgotten. In the north the rain fell cold and hard, and sometimes at night it turned to ice. It was as likely to kill a crop as to nurture it, and it sent grown men running for the nearest shelter. There was no rain for little girls to play in. "I'm soaked through," Sir Roderick complained. "Even my bones are wet." The woods pressed close round them, and the steadying patter of rain on leaves was accompanied by the small sucking sounds their horses made as their hooves pulled free from the mud. "We will want a fire tonight, my lady, and a hot meal would serve us both." "There is an inn at the crossroads up ahead," Catelyn told him. She had slept many a night there in her youth, travelling with her father. Lord Hoster Tully had been a restless man in his prime, always riding somewhere. She still remembered the innkeep, a fat woman named Marcia Heddle, who chewed sour leaf night and day and seemed to have an endless supply of smiles and sweet cakes for the children. The sweet cakes had been soaked with honey, rich and heavy on the tongue, but how Catelyn had dreaded those smiles. The sour leaf had stained Marcia's teeth a dark red, and made her smile a bloody horror. "An inn," Sir Roderick repeated wistfully. "If only— Oh, but we dare not risk it. If we wish to remain unknown, I think it best we seek out some small hold-fast." He broke off as they heard sounds up the road, splashing water, the clink of mail, a horse's whinny. "Riders," he warned, his hand dropping to the hilt of his sword. Even on the King's Road, it never hurt to be wary. They followed the sounds round a lazy bend of the road and saw them, a column of armed men noisily fording a swollen stream. Catelyn reined up to let them pass. The banner in the hand of the foremost rider hung sodden and limp, but the guardsmen wore indigo cloaks, and on their shoulders flew the silver eagle of Seaguard. "Milisters," Sir Roderick whispered to her, as if she'd not known. "My lady, best pull up your hood." Catelyn made no move. Lord Jason Mallister himself rode with them, surrounded by his knights, his son Patrick by his side, and their squires close behind. They were riding for King's Landing and the Hand's Tourney, she knew. For the past week the travellers had been thick as flies upon the King's Road, knights and free riders, singers with their harps and drums, heavy wagons laden with hops or corn or casks of honey, traders and craftsmen and whores, them moving south. She studied Lord Jason boldly. The last time she'd seen him, he'd been jesting her with her uncle at her wedding feast. The Mallisters stood bannermen to the Tullys, and his gifts had been lavish. His brown hair was salted with white now, his face chiselled gaunt by time, yet the years had not touched his pride. He rode like a man who feared nothing. Catelyn envied him that. She'd come to fear so much. As the riders passed, Lord Jason nodded a curt greeting, but it was only a high lord's courtesy to strangers chance met on the road. There was no recognition in those fierce eyes, and his son did not even waste a look. "He did not know you," Sir Roderick said after, wondering. "He saw a pair of mud-spattered travellers by the side of the road, wet and tired. It would never occur to him to suspect that one of them was the daughter of his liege lord. I think we should be safe enough at the inn, Sir Roderick." It was near dark when they reached it, at the crossroads north of the great confluence of the Trident. Marcia Heddle was fatter and greyer than Catelyn had remembered, still chewing her sour leaf, but she gave them only the most cursory of looks, with nary a hint of her ghastly red smile. "2 rooms at the top of the stair, that's all there is," she said, chewing all the while. "They're under the bell tower. You won't be missing meals, though there's some thinks it's too noisy. Can't be helped. We're full up or near as makes the matter. It's them rooms or the road. It was those rooms, low, dusty garrets at the top of a cramped, narrow staircase. Leave your boots down here, she told them after she'd taken their coin. The boy will clean them. I won't have you trucking mud up my stairs. Mind the bell. Those who come late to meals don't eat. There were no smiles and no mentions of sweet cakes. When the supper bell rang, the sound was deafening. Catelyn had changed into dry clothes. She sat by the window, watching rain run down the pane. The glass was milky and full of bubbles, and a wet dusk was falling outside. Catelyn could just make out the muddy crossing where the two great roads met. The crossroads gave her pause. If they turned west from here, it would be an easy ride to River Run. Her father had always given her wise counsel when she needed it most, and she yearned to talk to him, to warn him of the gathering storm. If Winterfell needed to brace for war, how much more so River Run, so much closer to King's Landing, with the power of Casterly Rock looming to the west like a shadow. If only her father had been stronger, she might have chanced it. But Hoster Tully had been bedridden these last 2 years, and Catelyn was loath to tax him now. The eastern road was wilder and more dangerous, climbing through rocky foothills and thick forests into the mountains of the moon, past high passes and deep chasms to the Vale of Arryn and the stony fingers beyond. Above the vale, the Eyrie stood high and impregnable, its towers reaching for the sky. There she would find her sister, and perhaps some of the answers that Ned sought. Surely Liza knew more than she dared put in her letter. She might have the very proof that Ned needed to bring the Lannisters to ruin, and if it came to war, they would need the Aarons and the Eastern lords who owed them service. Yet the mountain road was perilous. Shadow cats prowled those passes, rock slides were common, and the mountain clans were lawless brigands descending from the heights to rob and kill, and melting away like snow whenever the knights rode out from the vale in search of them. Even Jon Arryn, as great a lord as any the Eyrie had ever known, had always travelled in strength whenever he crossed the mountains. Catelyn's only strength was one elderly knight, armoured in loyalty. No, she thought. River Run and the Eyrie would have to wait. Her path ran north to Winterfell, where her sons and her duty were waiting for her. As soon as they were safely past the neck, she could declare herself to one of Ned's bannermen and send racers ahead with orders to mount a watch on the King's Road. The rain obscured the fields beyond the crossroads, but Catelyn saw the land clear enough in her memory. The marketplace was just across the way, and the village a mile further on, 100 white cottages surrounding a small stone sept. There would be more now. The summer had been long and peaceful. North of here, the King's Road ran along the green fork of the Trident, through fertile valleys and green woodlands, past thriving towns and stout holdfasts, and castles of the river lords. Catelyn knew them all. The Blackwoods and the Brackens, ever enemies, whose quarrels her father was obliged to settle. Lady Went, last of her line, who dwelt with her ghosts in the cavernous vaults of Harrenhal. Irascible Lord Frey, who'd outlived 7 wives and filled his twin castles with children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and bastards and grand-bastards as well. All of them were bannermen to the Tullys, their swords sawn to the service of River Run. Catelyn wondered if that would be enough, if it came to war. Her father was the staunchest man who'd ever lived, and she'd no doubt that he would call his banners. But would the banners come? The Dairys and Rygers and Mootons had sworn oaths to River Run as well, yet they'd fought with Rhaegar Targaryen on the Trident, while Lord Frey had arrived with his levies well after the battle was over, leaving some doubt as to which army he'd planned to join. "Theirs," he'd assured the victors solemnly in the aftermath. But ever after her father had called him the late Lord Frey. It must not come to war, Catelyn thought fervently. They must not let it. Sir Roderick came for her just as the bell ceased its clanging. "We'd better make haste if we hope to eat tonight, my lady." "It might be safer if we were not knight and lady until we pass the neck," she told him. "Common travellers attract less notice. A father and daughter taken to the road on some family business, say." "As you say, my lady," Sir Roderick agreed. It was only when she laughed that he realized what he'd done. "The old courtesies die hard, my daughter." He tried to tug on his missing whiskers and sighed with exasperation. Catelyn took his arm. "Come, father," she said. "You'll find that Masha Huddle sets a good table, I think, but try not to praise her. You truly don't want to see her smile." The common room was long and draughty, with a row of huge wooden kegs at one end and a fireplace at the other. A serving boy ran back and forth with skewers of meat while Masha drew beer from kegs, chewing her sour leaf all the while. The benches were crowded, townsfolk and farmers mingling freely with all manner of travellers. The crossroads made for odd companions. Dyers with black and purple hands shared a bench with rivermen reeking of fish, an ironsmith thick with muscle squeezed in beside a wizened old septon. Hard-bitten sellswords and soft plump merchants swapped news like boon companions. The company included more swords than Catelyn would have liked. 3 by the fire wore the red stallion badge of the Brackens, and there was a large party in blue steel ringmail and capes of a silvery grey. On their shoulders was the familiar sigil, the twin towers of House Frey. She studied their faces, but they were all too young to have known her. The senior among them would have been no older than Bran when she went north. Sir Roderick found them an empty table on the bench near the kitchen. Across the table a handsome youth was fingering a wood harp. "7 blessings to you, good folk," he said as they sat. An empty wine cup stood on the table before him. "And to you, singer," Catelyn returned. Sir Roderick called for bread and meat and beer in a tone that meant now. The singer, a youth of some 18 years, eyed them boldly and asked where they were going, and from whence they'd come, and what news they had, letting the questions fly as quick as arrows and never pausing for an answer. "We left King's Landing a fortnight ago," Catelyn replied, answering the safest of his questions. "That's where I'm bound," the youth said. As she had suspected, he was more interested in telling his own story than in hearing theirs. Singers love nothing half so well as the sound of their own voices. "The hand's tourney means rich lords with fat purses. The last time I came away with more silver than I could carry, or would have if I didn't lose it all betting on the Kingslayer to win the day." "The gods frown on the gambler," Sir Roderick said sternly. He was of the north and shared the Stark views on tournaments. "They frowned on me for certain," the singer said. "Your cruel gods and the Knight of Flowers all together did me in." "No doubt that was a lesson for you," Sir Roderick said. "It was. This time my coin will champion Sir Loras." Sir Roderick tried to tug at whiskers that weren't there, but before he could frame a rebuke, the serving boy came scurrying up. He laid trenchers of bread before them and filled them with chunks of browned meat off a skewer, dripping with hot juice. Another skewer held tiny onions, fire peppers, and fat mushrooms. Sir Roderick set to lustily as the lad ran back to fetch them beer. "My name is Marillion," the singer said, plucking a string on his wood harp. "Doubtless you've heard me play somewhere?" His manner made Catelyn smile. Few wandering singers ever ventured as far as Winterfell, but she knew his like from her girlhood in Riverrun. "I fear not," she told him. He drew a plaintive chord from the wood harp. "That is your loss," he said. "Who was the finest singer you've ever heard?" "I of Bravos," Sir Roderick answered at once. "Oh, I'm much better than that old stick," Marillion said. "If you have the silver for a song, I'll gladly show you." "I might have a copper or 2, but I'd sooner toss it down a well than pay for your howling," Sir Roderick groused. His opinion of singers was well known. Music was a lovely thing for girls, but he could not comprehend why any healthy boy would fill his hand with a harp when he could have had a sword. "Your grandfather has a sour nature," Marillion said to Catelyn. "I meant to do you honour, an homage to your beauty. In truth, I was made to sing for kings and high lords." "Oh, I can see that," Catelyn said. "Lord Tully is fond of song, I hear. No doubt you've been to Riverrun." 100 times, the singer said airily. "They keep a chamber for me, and the young lord is like a brother." Catelyn smiled, wondering what Edmure would think of that. Another singer had once bedded a girl her brother fancied. He'd hated the breed ever since. "And Winterfell?" she asked him. "Have you ever travelled north?" "Why would I?" Marillion said. It's all blizzards and bearskins up there, and the Starks know no music but the howling of wolves. Distantly, she was aware of the door banging open at the far end of the room. "Innkeep!" a servant's voice called out behind her. "We have horses that want stabling, and my Lord of Lannister requires a room and a hot bath." "Ugh, gods!" Sir Roderick said before Catelyn reached out to silence him, her fingers tightening hard round his forearm. Marcia Heddle was bowing and smiling her hideous red smile. "I'm sorry, my lord, truly, we're full up every room." There were 4 of them, Catelyn saw. An old man in the black of the Night's Watch, 2 servants, and him, standing there, small and bold as life. "My men will sleep in your stable, and as for myself, well, I do not require a large room, as you can plainly see." He flashed a mocking grin. "So long as the fire's warm and the straw is reasonably free of fleas, I am a happy man." Marcia Heddle was beside herself. "My lord, there's nothing. It's a journey here. No help for it. Oh!" Tyrion Lannister pulled a coin from his purse and flicked it up over his head, caught it, tossed it again. Even across the room where Catelyn sat, the wink of gold was unmistakable. A free rider in a faded blue cloak lurched to his feet. "You're welcome to my room, my lord." "Now, there's a clever man," Lannister said as he set the coin spinning across the room. The free rider snatched it from the air. "And a nimble one to boot." The dwarf turned back to Marcia Heddle. "You will be able to manage food, I trust?" "Anything you like, my lord, anything at all," she promised. "And may choke on it," Catelyn thought. But it was Bran she saw choking, drowning on his own blood. Lannister glanced at the nearest tables. "My men will have whatever you're serving these people. Double portions, we've had a long ride. I'll take a roast fowl, chicken, duck, pigeon, it makes no matter, and send up a flagon of your best wine. Yoren, will you sup with me?" "Aye, my lord, I will," the black brother replied. The dwarf had not so much glanced toward the far end of the room, and Catelyn was thinking how grateful she was for the crowded benches between them, when suddenly Marillion bounded to his feet. "My Lord of Lannister," he called out, "I would be pleased to entertain you while you eat. Let me sing you the lay of your father's great victory at King's Landing." "Nothing would be more likely to ruin my supper," the dwarf said dryly. His mismatched eyes considered the singer briefly, started to move away, and found Catelyn. He looked at her for a moment, puzzled. She turned her face away, but too late. The dwarf was smiling. "Lady Stark, what an unexpected pleasure," he said. "I was sorry to miss you at Winterfell." Marillion gaped at her, confusion giving way to chagrin as Catelyn rose slowly to her feet. She heard Sir Roderick curse. If only the man had lingered at the wall, she thought. If only... "Lady Stark?" Marcia Heddle said thickly. "I was still Catelyn Tully the last time I bedded here," she told the innkeep. She could hear the muttering, feel the eyes upon her. Catelyn glanced round the room, at the faces of the knights and sawn swords, and took a deep breath to slow the frantic beating of her heart. Did she dare take the risk? There was no time to think it through, only the moment and the sound of her own voice ringing in her ears. "You in the corner," she said to an older man she'd not noticed until now. "Is that the black bat of Harrenhal I see embroidered on your surcoat, sir?" The man got to his feet. "It is, my lady." "And is Lady Went a true and honest friend to my father, Lord Hoster Tully at Riverrun?" "She is," the man replied stoutly. Sir Roderick rose quietly and loosened his sword in its scabbard. The dwarf was blinking at them, blank-faced, with puzzlement in his mismatched eyes. "The Red Stallion was ever a welcome sight in Riverrun," she said to the trio by the fire. "My father counts Jonas Bracken amongst his oldest and most loyal bannermen." The 3 men-at-arms exchanged uncertain looks. "Our lord is honoured by his trust," said one of them hesitantly. "I envy your father all these fine friends," Lannister quipped. "But I don't quite see the purpose of this, Lady Stark." She ignored him, turning to the large party in blue and grey. They were the heart of the matter. There were more than 20 of them. I know your sigil as well, the Twin Towers of Frey. How fares your good lord, sirs? Their captain rose. Lord Walder is well, my lady. He plans to take a new wife on his 90th name day, and has asked your father to honour the wedding with his presence. Tyrion Lannister sniggered. That was when Catelyn knew he was hers. This man came as a guest into my house, and there conspired to murder my son, a boy of 7, she proclaimed to the room at large, pointing. Sir Roderick moved to her side, his sword in hand. In the name of King Robert and the good lords you serve, I call upon you to seize him and help me return him to Winterfell to await the king's justice. She did not know what was more satisfying, the sound of a dozen swords drawn, as one, or the look on Tyrion Lannister's face.
Yeah, so that dude who gave up his room just made out like a bandit. He got the gold, and now he gets to keep his room.
Yep. Yeah.
I think it would totally suck to be one of the Lannister men. They're going into the inn, and he's just like, yeah, my men will sleep in the stables. But wait, we will?
They're so tired. They've just been up at the wall for how long? No, we're going to sleep in the straw with the fleas.
And the horses.
I mean, horses are warm. It probably is.
I mean, that's true. It probably would be. Unless it rolled over on you.
Horses probably stuff.
Probably. I don't know. I see a lot of the videos of people like laying with cows. Never see it with horses. Big farm doggos. Ooh, is this the end of Tyrion Lannister?
It's because horses don't lay down for extended periods of time.
Well, no. But they do lay down.
It's like for like an hour a day.
Something
That's
like
it.
that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they sleep standing up or something.
They sleep standing up. They only lay down for like an hour at a time. But cows will just
knock out. Maybe that's what the Lannister men do. Maybe they just sleep standing up, riding the horse.
But not only that, do you have to sleep with the horses? But now you're gonna have to like turn around and be like, hey,
now you have to walk all the way back to Winterfell.
Do you have to walk all the way back to Winterfell, or do you go back to Casterly Rock and be like, so...
I feel like I would rather go to Winterfell, because you're going to go back to Casterly Rock, and you're going to get probably more than just a talking to about leaving. I mean, well, it's Tyrion. Maybe they wouldn't, but... Still.
Alistair just said kidnapping the son of the most powerful man in Westeros is probably the stupidest thing you could do.
Yeah.
Even if it is Tyrion.
Yeah.
Catelyn is not thinking with her brain
right
now.
She's thinking with that mother side of her brain. You hurt my child.
I'm gonna hurt you now.
Yeah.
You think Ned's gonna... Ned's probably not.
He already is so stressed out and so many problems. He's gonna get this letter and just be like, Jesus.
That was a big hunk of lettuce, sorry.
Just, I don't know, man. I feel like if it was Ned, just like throw it in the fire. I never saw this letter.
I don't know what you're talking about.
This is her business. I got enough going on.
Yeah, so when Tywin says, hey, you got my kid, Ned would be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't get no news about this. Does Catelyn have much of a brain? Wow.
Burn Catelyn.
A lot of Catelyn hate up in here right now.
I'm trying to think. We really...
I mean, she really pissed me off when I first read the book.
Yeah. Well, because she comes across as Sansa. She honestly kind of is Sansa throughout her whole story arc. I do like her in the later books, even though they cut that out of the show.
Yeah. She
But
is
yeah.
Sansa. What's
Yeah.
the first thing that happens when she gets to the inn? She's like, oh, the sweet cakes and the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, they mention a few times that Sansa's like the daughter she always wanted.
Yeah, Martin definitely goes out of his way to describe the similarities between Catelyn and Sansa and Arya and Ned.
Yeah.
It's like he uses language specifically so you would take the two daughters and put them with each parent. It's pretty obvious. But I mean, it was kind of nice to get some like little childhood backstory. I feel like Martin really uses the Catelyn chapters to just kind of do exposition because we just learned about the Freys and the Brackens and Harrenhal
and the Tullys
and like who the Tullys are and who their bannermen are and where they're located and what the Freys did in the last rebellion. They were just kind of like, oh shit, you done fighting? Well, we were gonna fight with you guys, I swear.
We were on our way. We just forgot our swords in the bathroom. Going back to get them.
Walder Frey is 90. Gonna marry another woman.
He's basically the Hugh Hefner of Westeros.
I guess so. Has grandchildren and grandbastards.
Mm-hmm. The man gets around.
Yes, he does.
Don't throw out a hip, man.
But it's always exposition with the Catelyn chapters.
Yeah,
it's been pretty consistent, where you're always just finding out new information about the world in general from the Catelyn chapters specifically.
Yeah, I've noticed that. She's like the character that drives the plot forward, like, the character that expands the world forward. Yeah, I think that's the only reason, like, Martin put her in here.
Or at least kept her in here.
No, I think in the beginning, because it really shows... She, in herself, isn't that interesting of a character just yet.
No, she's terrible. Are you kidding me? She's not remotely interesting. There's nothing...
She sets the interest up for everything else that happens. So
yeah.
I think he wanted to do it in a way that didn't seem like just straight up narration.
Yeah.
So he basically
filter it.
Yeah, he filtered it through Catelyn. So Catelyn's like our narrator.
At least as far as like showing you what it is.
Well, yeah.
And we also learned about the Eyrie and what the Eyrie is like and why it's so impregnable. You get like more detail about it. It's super mountainous and there's shadow cats and it's dangerous. There's
shadow cats. I know where you would be.
See the shadow cats.
Are shadow cats just like leopards? Not leopards. Panthers.
No, I don't think they're like panthers. I think they're probably more like a mountain lion kind of cat. I
don't know. Shadow, you think black, maybe like a black mountain lion?
Maybe. I'm gonna look them up real quick.
She is the one that caused the poop to hit fan.
Yeah, she really is the catalyst.
Mm-hmm.
Catelyn!
Catalyst!
Ah, Martin, see what you're doing.
Oh, wow. That just hit me. Mind blown. No wonder it's spelled like that. That makes sense.
It kind of does. Catelyn. I would love it if that is actually, like, he really thought about that when he did it. Like, she's the catalyst.
I never thought about why the names were spelled the way they are. I wonder if there's anything else.
I always thought it was an old English thing. Like a callback to medieval English. I thought that's how I interpreted it.
I mean, maybe. I also thought that he was just thinking of names and decided I'm just going to take normal names and kind of mix them up a little bit.
They're like an inverted tiger.
Mm-hmm.
Large felines found throughout Westeros, including the lands beyond the wall, the mountains of the moon, the northern riverlands, and the red mountains of Dorne. Thick black fur with white stripes. They are somewhere in between real-world tigers and mountain lions. They can disembowel a man with one paw, sharp, curved front teeth, and a lashing tail, deep rumbling growls, and furious screams. Shadow skin are the pelts of shadow cats, and they are prized as warm and thick fur cloaks. Shadow cats are fearsome predators and also scavenge. Silent and agile hunters, it is said that shadow cats can smell blood 6 miles away. They will eat every shred of meat from a kill and will crack bones to get at the marrow. Shadow cats tend not to attack living men unless starved.
Okay, so a shadow cat is just like the ultimate cat.
They're big cats.
Yes.
I mean, because big cats crack bones to drink marrow and all of that. They're pretty much just big cats.
Okay, just...
They're pretty normal big cats, because a leopard can disembowel a person with their back feet.
Well, yeah.
They've done it before.
That'd be an awful way to go. Just saying.
They say that if you're going to get attacked by a big cat, the one you don't want to get attacked by is a leopard.
Why? What's different about how they would attack you?
Because, like, a tiger or whatever, or, you know, they've got these huge feet, they'll probably, like, smack you, and then you're probably just unconscious, and you're lying on the ground. Or they'll take a big bite, and they'll just kind of, like, hang on.
Mm.
A leopard will jump on you and take its front claws right here and hook onto you, and then it'll take its back feet and go like this.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that doesn't sound fun.
It's everywhere. And they're just like real aggressive. Like they're more likely to attack than a tiger or a lion. Like a tiger or a lion is more likely to be like, whatever. But a leopard, they will.
No wonder our ancestors fled Africa. Yes.
Not the crocodiles.
It was probably all that.
I just want to take a drink. I just need to scoop some water out the river. Nope. Today, buddy.
Yep. There's a couple people that just got together like, man, I'm over this. You out? I'm out. Let's go.
Not even crocodiles. Hippos.
Or hippos.
Hippos. Like, hippos kill more people than anything else. Like, probably wasn't the lions or the crocodiles. It was probably the hippos. They were just like, I'm sick of being chased by these giant fat monsters.
Do you know if they have Game of Thrones bestiary? I know, like, The Witcher, there's a bestiary for it. So you can see, like, all the creatures that are in The Witcher. You have the Monster Book of Monsters for Harry Potter.
No, it's the Fantastic Beasts.
Or Fantastic Beasts.
Which maybe we'll read some this weekend.
Yeah, maybe.
Or, not this weekend. Next weekend
next
when
weekend.
we live stream.
And, I know we saw about... we read some things about the animals of, like, the world over in Essos and
They've mentioned
the
different kinds
southern
of
villain places where the basilisks are
mentioned
and
different
stuff.
animals.
But I wonder if there's just a book about it. That'd be cool if you wrote it, and then instead of, written by George R.R. Martin, it could be author Arya Stark.
That'd be cool.
That was like, her... It's like a culmination of her journey, talking about all the animals and creatures and places she goes. Martin, get on it. I want to read that book.